Have you ever reached a goal, something you worked very hard for, probably dreamed about, maybe even prayed for, and when you finally got it, you thought, yeah, this should make me happy, but somehow it didn't. Maybe it was landing that dream job, maybe it was finally taking that vacation, maybe it was getting into that relationship you've always wanted. And sure, it felt good at first. You know, there was excitement, you felt excited, you even celebrated. But then at some point, the quiet question crept in. Is that it? Why don't I feel more alive? You just realize that it's like you're living, you're breathing, you're showing up, you're checking the boxes. Yes, but you're not feeling alive. Do you understand that feeling? You're not feeling alive. You're not vibrating with the energy of being truly present, like of being truly connected, lit up from inside out. And that's what this video is all about. Do you get? Today we are going deep, like real deep. Not into trends or hacks or quick fixes, but into something that lives under the surface of our everyday lives. I want you to really sit with this one, not just in your head, but in your hearts. So I want to talk about the difference between being happy and feeling alive. Have you ever thought of that? The difference between being happy and feeling alive. Because they're not always the same. You get? They're not always the same. And if you've been feeling stuck, numb, restless, or just some kind of lately, this conversation might just be something you need just to unlock something for you. So here's the big question I want you to explore. Does feeling alive really bring true happiness? Or are we just chasing the wrong thing? Now let me be clear. I'm not saying happiness is bad. We all want to be happy. Do you get? It's a basic human desire. But the way we define happiness and the way we push it, that is where things get complicated. So today I'm inviting you to question the stories you've been told. To peel back the layers of what you think you want. Yes, peel back the layers of what you think you want and ask yourself what your soul is actually craving. Here's the truth that no one tells you about. You can have everything that looks like happiness and still feel deeply unfulfilled. You can be doing all the right things and still feel disconnected from your own life. Does this make sense? And that disconnection, that's not something to be ashamed of. I'm telling you, when you feel disconnected, you shouldn't be ashamed of it. It's not a sign of failure. It's just a sign that something deeper is calling you, okay? So in this video today, we'll be unpacking some things. Why the traditional definition of happiness might be misleading. Another thing we can talk about is what it really means to feel alive. Have you ever thought about what it really means to feel alive? We'll also talk about how presence, mindfulness, and ordinary moments can lead us to extraordinary peace. Then we'll talk about how shifting your focus from chasing happiness to cultivating aliveness could change everything. I will share personal stories, some insights from psychology, and practical tools you can use to reconnect with your life in a more meaningful way. Seriously. But more than anything, I want this video to be a permission slip. I want this video to be a permission slip to feel what you feel, to question what you've been taught, to redefine what joy looks like to you or feels for you. Because you deserve a life that doesn't just look good on the outside. You deserve a life that feels good on the inside and also on the outside. A life that wakes you up. A life that moves you. A life that feels like your own. If you're ready to dive into this with me, come. Let's begin.
I'm with Lucia every day. Find your light along the way. Inspiration.
So first, let's take a breath together. Let this be the start of something real. So welcome to a new way of seeing your life, okay? Welcome to the truth no one talks about. Let's go there. Let's go there together. If you really remember this day, I should have been filled with joy and accomplishment. Everything in my life, at least at the surface, seemed aligned. My kids were healthy and happy. My work was moving forward steadily. If you know me, my house is usually bustling with chaos that comes from raising little ones. was surprisingly quiet. The rare kind of quiet that almost feels like a gift. Once you have it, you enjoy it. And yet something felt off. I made myself a cup of tea. I climbed back upstairs to my room, sat by the window, where the light was coming in from, and took a deep breath. Everything looked perfect. Like, that kind of scene you would expect me to just quickly bring out my phone, take a social media picture and write grateful for the little things. But inside me, I felt nothing. I felt nothing. Like, not sadness, not joy, not anxiety, just numb. Just that numb feeling. I stared out through the window and it just felt like I was watching someone else's life from the outside. I could see the beauty of it, the calm, the stability. I couldn't feel it. It was as though I was wrapped in invisible fog, disconnected from the very little things, the very things that I worked so hard to build. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I was just exhausted. Maybe I hadn't had enough sleep. You just start giving excuses for this kind of things. Maybe I needed a good cry or a walk or a journal. Do you get? Most of the time I feel this way, I just get out my journal and start writing. I call it journal season. I just start writing. But this feeling lingered. Days passed and I was still feeling this numbness. It just kept on returning like an uninvited guest who had settled into a guest room of my soul. And that's when the real questions started bubbling. It started building up. Do you get? Why didn't I feel happy? Why didn't I feel fulfilled? Why do I feel this way when everything I thought I wanted was right in front of me? Was there something wrong with me? It just makes you to start thinking, am I okay? Is anything wrong with me? I started to dig into these questions and ask myself why I felt this way. Not just to find relief, but to understand what was really going on the inside. And here's what I began to uncover. We've been sold a story about happiness that doesn't quite add up. We've been told that happiness comes from having. Do you get? Happiness comes from having, from acquiring, from achieving, from accumulating. We've been told that once we reach a certain milestone, probably the job title, the income bracket, the dream home, the partner, the kids, that will feel a sense of lasting joy. But here I was, sitting in my own version of that checklist, with so many of those boxes ticked and still feeling empty. At that moment, I just felt empty. What if the problem isn't that we are not doing enough? That we are not achieving enough or not having enough? What if the real issue is how we define happiness? Because in a way that's disconnected from what it really means to feel alive. That moment by the window became a turning point for me. I stopped trying to fix my feelings. Do you get? I stopped blaming myself for not feeling grateful enough. Instead, I leaned in. I just got curious. I started paying attention. Because you have to understand yourself, trying to understand, pay attention. And what I realized is this. True happiness, that kind that sticks, that carries you even through the bad days, isn't made up of these big, loud moments. It's not always about joy or excitement. It's about presence. Yes, it's about presence. It's about connection. It's about truly being here in your life and not just managing it. Being here in your life and not just managing it. It's about learning to be in your own body, in your breath, in your feelings, even when they are messy. It's about knowing you are alive, not because everything is perfect, but because you are awake to what is. I began to reframe the question. Instead of asking, why am I not happy? I don't know if you ask yourself that question, why am I not happy? I started asking myself questions like, where am I not present? Where am I not present? Where am I feeling present? It led me to moments I had previously dismissed, like the way my son giggled uncontrollably at dinner, or the warmth of sunlight on my face during a walk, or the sound of silence after a long day. Like after you're stressed and you come back, that silence. Do you get? These were to Instagrammable moments. It's not something you post on Instagram. They didn't come with fireworks or fanfare, but they were real. And they made me feel something. It made me feel alive. In that personal season, I learned something powerful. That is possible to have everything and feel nothing. And that is also possible to have very little, like materially, and feel incredibly rich in spirit. The difference lies in how connected we are to our experience, not our achievements. Feeling alive isn't about being happy all the time. It's about showing up for life, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about letting yourself feel deeply. Feel the highs, the lows, the mundane, and the magical. So if you've ever felt that same emptiness, if you've sat in the quietness of a seemingly perfect day and wondered why it doesn't feel the way you imagined, my dear, you're not alone. I see you, I've been there, and I hope this video reminds you that you're not broken. No, you're not broken. You are just being invited to feel more deeply. Wake up to your own life in a new way. I'm saying this not to offer a one-size-fits-all solution, but to remind you that your feelings are valid. Sometimes the most important question isn't how do I get happy? How do I get happy? What do I do to get happy? But rather, you should be asking yourself things like, what am I doing that makes me feel alive? Do you get? Let's start here. Let's explore what it means to be fully engaged in life again. And let's give ourselves permission to redefine what true joy looks like without the filters and facades. This is not social media. This is what we're defining what true joy really feels for us without filters, okay? We live in a world obsessed with happiness. It's everywhere. In the quotes you scroll past on Instagram, in the curated family moments we post, in the podcasts we listen to. In fact, even in marketing that sells products promising us of spark, even in products saying spark joy, we are constantly told that happiness should be our number one goal. That if we are not waking up to be alive every single day, something must be wrong with us. But let me ask you, who defined happiness for you? Was it your parents, social media, movies, or maybe that one teacher who told you success equals fulfillment? Somewhere along the line, many of us bought into this idea that happiness looks like a highlight reel, like vacations, promotions, weddings, babies, new homes, aesthetic coffee cups. We started thinking of happiness as a destination, a reward after working hard, being good, or checking off every box on the ideal life checklist. But here is the truth. That's not happiness, that's performance. Happiness is not about looking like you're happy. It's not about having the perfect morning routine or a Pinterest-worthy home. It's about how alive and connected you are to your feelings. It's about how alive and connected you feel in your actual, unfiltered, everyday life. One of the biggest misconceptions we have is thinking happiness equals constant positivity. That if we are sad, something must be wrong. That if we are struggling, we are somehow failing. But real happiness includes the full spectrum of human emotions. It's not about eliminating bad days or hard days. It's about knowing how to navigate them. Let me say this again. Real happiness is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of meaning. We also think happiness is something we chase, like a goal that stays just out of reach. If I can lose 10 pounds, if I can get that promotion, if I meet that right partner. But every time you achieve one of those goals, the bar moves. You get the thing and still feel unfulfilled. Do you know why? Because happiness that is based on outcome will always be temporary. When we tie our happiness to external achievements, we give our power away. Think of it. We'll make our joy conditional and therefore it becomes fragile. What if happiness isn't something we chase, but something we create? Something we cultivate, moment by moment, through presence, connection, creativity, gratitude. Let's take social media, for example. It can be beautiful, a space to connect, share, and be inspired. But it can also be a breeding ground for comparison. We scroll through perfect travel photos, flawless selfies, big announcements, and slowly begin to feel like we are behind. We forget that people are only showing what they want us to see. We compare our unedited lives to someone else's carefully curated brand, and that's just unfair. It's not just unfair, in fact. It's not just unfair, it's dangerous. Let's think of it, it's dangerous. It makes us forget that happiness isn't a competition, it's a connection. It's a connection to ourselves, to others, and to the moments we are living in. So let's challenge these myths head on. All these myths, let's just challenge it head on. Happiness is not perfection, it's presence. Happiness is not loud. Sometimes it even whispers. Happiness doesn't mean constant joy, it means being real. And that includes struggle. For once we break free from the idea that happiness needs to look a certain way, we open the door to experience it in ways we never expected. Sometimes it shows up in the middle of a hard conversation, when we finally say that we need to say. Sometimes it arrives when we are crying, when a friend holds that space for us. Sometimes it's even in messy, raw, beautiful truth of being human. Because that realness is what makes us feel alive. The more alive we feel, the more happiness we are able to hold. Okay? Yes, the more happiness we're able to hold. So what does it even mean to feel alive? Let's start here. It's not fireworks or big announcements. It's not the once in a lifetime trip or the grand celebrations. Though those ones are beautiful too. Celebrations and all that. Feeling alive is presence. Feeling alive is presence. It's when you're not numbing, not escaping, not checking out. Okay? But dropping into the fullness of the moment. It's that breath you take when the sunset stops in your tracks. It's the butterflies in your stomach before trying something new. It's the deep sigh after a long day when your child calls into your arms. For me, feeling alive is when I lose track of time. Like whether I'm deep in conversation, dancing around the house, I'm just trying to think of it, or laughing till I cry with someone I love. Sometimes it's the pain too. It's crying in the bedroom floor. It's staring into space, processing something heavy. It's showing up even when your heart feels shattered. Being alive is not always comfortable, but it's always honest. And here is the real kicker. You can be alive and in pain and still feel a sense of meaning. You can be alive, be in pain and still feel a sense of meaning. Okay? You can be grieving and still be connected to the sacredness of life. Yes. You can feel fear and still say, whoa, I'm here. I'm feeling this, I'm alive. When I started shifting my attention from trying to be happy to simply being present, to being here, I found peace. I started seeing joy in small things. You know, a warm mug of tea in the morning, your kids running barefoot around the grass, the sound of birds in the stillness before sunrise. None of these things I just mentioned screamed success to the world, but they made me feel grounded. They made me feel connected, alive, present. And here is what I want to leave with you in this section. You don't have to wait for a big moment to start feeling alive. Start with the moment you're in. Notice it, be in it. Right? Try to internalize it. That is where life is, and that is where you are. This your present moment is where you are. Try to internalize it, try to feel it, and you'll be more alive. Okay? So every moment, just like we've discussed, is a way for you to feel alive. Okay? I don't want this video to be long. I'm going to end it, and I'll see you in my next. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you in the next one.